Okay, everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us here on the Leading Edge Live. I'm your host, Eric Thompson, and we have a special guest that I will introduce here in just a moment. And this is our monthly get-together where we are here just to help you out with your business. So you're going to get some strategies and takeaways. You're going to get things you can implement into your business right away. And this is our chance to hear from people who are doing it real life. So these are real life stories, real life examples from the trenches. So this is the opposite of theory. This is all about what works. Today's theme is going to be, pull it up here, how to quickly launch your career by leveraging your relationships. All of us have relationships. This podcast and this get together today, this webinar is all about how to leverage relationships. We're going to learn from a pro at that. And before I introduce our guest, I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay. So if you wouldn't mind, all of you who are listening in live, and I know that we have a bunch of people who will hear the recording as well. If you're listening in live, if you wouldn't mind just typing in a little comment in your GoToWebinar dashboard there, your little question toolbar. If you wouldn't mind typing me a comment to say that you can hear me okay, that you can hear me coming through loud and clear, I would greatly appreciate that. So looks like we got some comments coming in, so you can hear me quite all right. So I got some really nice comments coming in, so that's fantastic. So good to hear that you can hear me. And all right, so let's get on with the show here. Let's get our guest introduced so we can give some takeaways to you that will really help you out. So our guest today, I'm so honored to introduce, so honored to have with us the one and only John Holsten. So John and I have known each other for several years. John and I are good friends. John and I now get to work together here at Windermere Real Estate in Fort Collins, Colorado. We're going to get a lot of takeaways from you, John. So to start by saying, John, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Eric, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
All right, fantastic. And by the way, John and I are sitting here together in my office. We are right in the real estate office where we work. It's a busy real estate office. So if you hear background noise, that's just our busy office. We're having an extra busy day here at the office. So we're sitting here together in Fort Collins, Colorado. And you all are going to get some takeaways from John. A lot of these, again, are around just leveraging relationships. We all have relationships, and you're going to learn a lot about that, how John has had a lot of success with that theme. So how about this, John? Why don't we just start with helping everyone get to know you a little bit better, just speaking about relationships. So why don't we just start with, tell us how long you've been in real estate and what you were doing before.
Right.
In real estate.
Yeah. I'm coming up on 7 years in the business. So in June, it will be 7 years. Before that, I was a police officer here in our city in Fort Collins for 17 years, almost 18 years. Before that, I was a TV reporter. So I've had kind of a varied career, this is my third career.
Got it.
Which this is, it's been great.
Got it.
So
yeah. And for the record, John and I never met while he was a police officer. So
that is not true. Don't try to put that off. You remember that crazy night.
Right. Yeah. So 7 years in real estate, and how about a little bit about your family too? You have just a wonderful family, and tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, my wife is Siri. She and I have been married for 25 years. One of my daughters, I have to at least say her name. So
yeah.
My wife is Siri. My daughter is Alexa. So yes, we have that issue in our home that I came home one day and our little dot was missing, and my daughter advised me that she had thrown it away in a drawer. But yeah, I have 6 kids. So we range in 23, our oldest, and she's out of the house, and 2 in college, and then 3 still at home. So I'm a blessed man, and a little bit about my family.
Yeah, your family's amazing, wonderful family, wonderful wife. You and I both married up, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we have that in common too. So yeah, that's great. So you all should know, all of you listening, you all should know a little bit about John's production. Just want to put this in context. The things you're going to hear about, I think it's important to understand the level of productivity of where he's been, so you know where this is coming from. So last year, John, you helped 55 different people. So you had 55 transactions last year. Congratulations on a terrific year. That was your best year so far in terms of volume.
Right.
So big congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, everyone should know that John's off to a wonderful start to 2019. You have on the books, and some have closed already, but you should end up with 9 closings for the month of January. So that's terrific. That for a lot of people, that would be a good, not great, but a good year. And so you're off to a really great start. So,
well, we've got a good month. We'll see what next January holds.
That's right.
But,
yeah.
I mean, for this, we'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it. So big congratulations on that. So why don't we start with a mindset piece, if that's all right with you, John? One thing as I've gotten to know you, that it's been an interesting insight that you shared with me, and I appreciate you being really open about this. And it's a kind of an evolution that you've had with your own mindset from the time you started in real estate and how your business has grown, and the mindset and the evolution has taken place around a mindset of going from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. And I think it's amazing. It's terrific. It's powerful. And I think there's a big takeaway here. So if you wouldn't mind just talking to us about that evolution and what that looked like, and like where you came from and where you are today.
Sure. Well, when I was born, my dad was a pastor at a small local church, a little farm church. You can imagine the income that he had. Right. Wasn't very much. There were 5 kids, 5 of us. So my mom stayed home with us. My dad did not make much money at all, like to the point that I never remember missing a meal, but I remember having the same thing, which would be like corn mush or something like that for a few days. I mean, very just not a lot of money in our home. We went from that to farming. So my dad was a ranch manager, and same thing. I mean, farmers can have great years, but for some reason we missed out on those great years and tend to have the harder years. But same thing there. Money was super tight, and it was hard. I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, my parents really, we didn't have health insurance because the church didn't provide that. Didn't have it as a farm manager. So, I mean, I remember even as a young child, I think now I actually had a bone tumor in my hand when I was a kid, and had one of the very first bone graft surgeries in Colorado. But they had to hollow out my finger, and they repacked it with bone from my wrist, and it was one of the very first. But that was a pretty serious surgery because it had potential cancer there. We didn't have insurance. When I look back on that and I go, man, what my dad must have gone through to really pay that, So now, of course, I look back in retrospect and I can see those things, but pretty humble beginnings. And so there was that. And then, so talking about the mindset, then I grew up in that scarcity mindset, that every penny is to be valued, which, by the way, it still is, right? Every penny is to be valued. But I grew up in that environment. Then I go to the government, right? So I worked as a police officer again for about 17 years. And the government, of course, is always don't spend, contrary to what it seems like sometimes. But but don't spend, and it's tighten your belt and do more with less. And
also a lot of limits on your income too.
Absolutely.
Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't do bad as a police officer financially, but still it was tight. My wife was at home with our kids, and so we were single income. And then, of course, I made the jump. I mean, I went from full-time law enforcement to full-time real estate. Right.
Steady paycheck.
Steady paycheck to no steady paycheck. And so, I made that jump, used some retirement, pulled it out, got into it, and realized very, very quickly that there is a lot of money to be made in real estate. Right. Which is great. I'm not terribly driven by, being a millionaire or anything like that, but I realized there's a lot to be made, but I also had to invest a lot too. Right. So getting over that mindset of going, I can't spend a penny here. To like, you better spend some money or, and then seeing the process or the progress of starting from nothing or very slim to being in a position that I'm very blessed. I can see that there's had to be a mindset shift for me where I'm not frivolous with my money. It's just that I realize that there is abundance and it's okay to pursue that for the right reasons. And so has been an evolution in my life.
Yeah. So the evolution was growing up. It was there's never enough. We have to pinch every penny, and it's there were meals on the table, but the set meals to limits on income. To now you're stepping into real estate, and the shift was going from be careful what I spend to I need to invest into my business in order for it to grow. And that mindset had to happen first before you started realizing the abundance starting flowing back to you. It's not like you had all this abundance flowing and then you flip the switch to say, well, now I have enough to invest. You had to first make the decision in your head and in your heart to invest into your business, and then it released like the abundance to flow back to you.
Absolutely. And I think too, and I want to make it clear, even growing up, I'm a man of faith. God took care of us. There was never a time where we weren't provided for. So we weren't worried about it. But the beauty of it now is as you live in more abundance, which comes from a ton of hard work and a number of factors. But now I'm on the side of being able to bless people the way that we were blessed. Right. And so that's a lot of fun too. And I think that always, also comes back around. And not that that's the reason you do it, but it does.
Right. That's great. Well, the reason why I wanted to talk about this, all of you listening in here, is that I see frequently realtors that have a mindset where they're scared to invest back into their business, and specifically as it relates to marketing, they have a mindset where marketing is an expense and I have to be careful with my expenses. Well, the mindset shift is that marketing is an investment, and you hold that investment accountable just like you would any other investment. You expect a return on that investment, but in order for anything to grow, we need to invest into it, and so we invest into our business through marketing. You are very clearly you do that, and you have kind of a number that you have targeted for this year, kind of a rule of thumb where a certain dollar amount per name. And if you could tell, I forget if it's per month or per year.
The bad thing is I forget the number too at the moment. I did the math but basically I have my budget, my annual budget for advertising is around $30,000. Okay, and but I advertise to 400 people, so whatever the math is.
So those whatever the calculator in front of you can figure that out. But it's so investment of $30,000 into 400 people. So that leads to kind of the next place I want to go in the conversation is to have you talk about the people who are in your sphere. So our overarching theme here is relationships. You answer my first question, which is how many people are in your database? 400. And so you were lucky enough, as you launched this business, to have a lot of existing relationships. You've lived in this community for a long time, and you're able to leverage those relationships. So have you always been marketing out to about 400 people, or has that grown over the 7 years that you've been in real estate?
Yeah, so when I started, I would say my list was about 250 people, something like that, 250 to 3, and now we're up to 4. So, but I have always marketed to however many people are on that list. So, I know some people will break it up between their hot, warm, and cold. I'm not a believer in that. Everyone's a hot, right? Everybody's an A-lister in my book. So however many people are on that list, they all get the same marketing. They all get the same attention. So it's grown from about 250 to about 4.
Okay, 250 to 400, and that's another key takeaway that you just mentioned, where it's not like only a certain amount get a certain marketing piece, and then these other people don't get as much. They all get kind of the full complement of marketing. So could you walk us through everything that you send out to those 400 people? How do you market to them exactly?
Okay, so I send out, our company sends out what's called the boomerang, right, which is a monthly coupon of great value. Now, I personally, I know that a lot of people in our community, not just Windermere, but a lot of companies, realtors will send out the boomerang, right? So what I've done is I've switched that up a little bit, and I pursue my own leads, my own companies, so it's the same thing. So I don't call it the boomerang, but I send out a monthly coupon.
Okay.
That's very substantive, right?
Yeah.
So I do that. We send out what's called the Windermere News.
Yep.
So that goes out every month.
Yep.
In addition to that, so those are 2 pieces of direct mail
Yep.
that everybody on that list gets.
Yep. Just real quick, just to clarify what those are for everyone listening. So the Boomerang, as John said, it's a monthly postcard that's for a local merchant, and it's some kind of a discount or offer. And it's all the way from a delicatessen to a donut shop to an oil change.
Did you bring up donuts because I used to be a cop, Eric? Is that why you did that?
Yeah, thank you.
That was good catch. Not cool.
Yep. And then the newsletter that John mentioned, that's a printed newsletter that our company happens to do. So that's full of stats and facts about the market. Again, that's a printed piece that goes out. So John, both of those go out in the mail, snail mail, hard copy mail.
Correct. So I do those 2.
Okay.
And then I know a lot of people do email pieces, which frankly I probably should do more, but I don't. Okay. I need to focus more on that. That's one of the things I need to grow in. Okay. Then the other 2 things I do that is a little different maybe are I have bus benches in our city.
Yep.
I've got 4 of them on which I get comments constantly. So I know they're out there. And then I have radio ads. Okay, so what I do is even though, people say, well, what's your what's your return on the bus benches? I don't know. What's the return on my radio ads? I don't know that either.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you don't know what your return is. You just know it's there.
Yeah.
But I market to those 400 people. So if I get extra business that comes in from those things, that's great.
Yeah.
But my 400 is who I want to hear.
Yeah. Right.
My message.
One thing I find interesting is that, and this is valuable for the listeners, you've been very strategic about both radio and bus benches.
Right.
So even though those could be perceived as like a rifle approach, just kind of this throwing a blanket over the market kind of thing, that it's actually much more of a rifle approach as opposed to shotgun. I may have said rifle before, but as opposed to shotgun, it's rifle, where, for instance, the first bus bench you had was right outside the police station.
Right.
All those relationships you had with your former colleagues, you knew they would see that bus bench. The radio that you're on, you know that a vast majority of your 400 people in your sphere of influence happen to listen to the radio stations that you advertise on. So you take a strategic approach. The bus benches are on roads that your folks drive on. So that's why you're able to get a return. And the return are the 55 transactions that
you're
able to get.
I'm not a fan of the shotgun approach for sure.
Yeah.
And I understand, you're right. That's how those look. Yeah. But whenever you can be targeted the best you can within that, like I've got my bus benches still they shut down the bus route by the police department, which really frustrates me actually. But I'm trying to get high visibility areas, areas that I know my sphere may live in more than others, and things like that. So yes, they are to some degree shotgun. I'll get people, although I got a call from a complete stranger one day saying, I don't know what's up, but I'm driving down the road and I saw your bus bench and I heard you on the radio at the same time. So I don't know if I'm supposed to call you or what. But hey, it didn't turn into business, but it was kind of a fun conversation, But so that's how I approach that.
Got it. So in addition to the pieces you send by mail, you do a whole lot of live interaction with your clients, right? Both on the phone and face-to-face. So let's talk about both, and maybe we'll start by talking about the phone. So you're on the phone all the time, and I know when just about every time I walk by your office, you're on the phone. I see you and hear you on the phone a lot. So what are some reasons that you're using to call people? Give us some little nuggets there you could share. What are some reasons to call people?
Okay, well, so this is what I would say to people listening. So everybody think of a friend. Just think of a friend. There's your reason to call somebody. You just thought of them, right? There's your reason right there. It doesn't have to be a business reason. It doesn't have to be, something to do with their home or market analysis or something it's just personal interaction for the sake of personal interaction, because we care for people. We want to make sure things are going well for them. Yeah. So that's one reason. I am pretty active on Facebook as far as keeping on top of people and what's going on there. And we see something that's cool there. May call them. I'll be driving down the road, drive by someone's neighborhood. Makes me think of them. I'll call them. Hey, I
Yeah.
was just driving by your neighborhood, just thought of you,
Yeah.
just wondering how you guys are doing.
Right.
That's all you got to do. I mean, I would say, 80% of my phone calls to just out of the blue, that some people would call cold calls, or not cold calls, but just prospecting calls.
Uh-huh.
I would say, 8 out of 10 are for just personal touch base, see how you're doing
Yeah.
reasons, right? They almost always turn into business because people say, well, how's business going? And that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's just a side benefit of those conversations. So those are reasons. Of course, you do have transactions going on with people. I might be listing a property and go, hey, that might actually work for this person, or that investor might be interested in that. And even just a quick, hey, you might not be interested, but this is coming up, and I text a lot.
Yeah.
And I know I prefer voice to voice if I can, but today's generation does a lot of texting.
Yeah.
And so I do drop a lot of text to people.
Okay.
A lot of, so.
Got it.
There's always a reason, though.
Always a reason, yeah. Those Facebook ones are easy. And I oftentimes see realtors struggle with
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah,
for sure.
What am I going to say when I call people? Well, just find the fruit on Facebook, and the call is just simply, hey, I saw on Facebook that fill in the blank. You were just in Mexico, or your son just graduated, or you were at a birthday party, whatever it is, and people really enjoy those phone calls.
Can I turn this interview on you for a second? Because I'm curious what you think is about something. So if you have, like, for me, when we have that conversation with people, they'll say, well, yeah, but I'm not the type of person that just checks in on somebody.
Yeah.
Right? Like out of the blue.
Yeah.
This is where I'm glad that kind of before I was in real estate, I kind of keep in touch with people, right? Anyway, so it's a natural thing for me. But what do you, what do you recommend people do, and I have my thought on it. I just want to hear your thought. It's like, well, if I'm not like that, that seems weird if I'm just calling people out of the blue, and is that salesy? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how does someone change that?
Yeah, I just think it's all about the mindset. If you have a mindset of I'm delivering a gift to this person, and the gift may be just your time and attention and care, like you said before. I think the easiest call to make is a happy birthday call. Everyone loves hearing happy birthday. I think that wishing someone happy birthday on Facebook is a total cop out and could almost be negative. Where if you see on Facebook someone's having a birthday, just call them and wish them a happy birthday. The second easiest call to make is an invitation call. It could be an invitation to an event, or some kind of a company event or customer appreciation event, a sporting event, but it could also be an invitation to coffee. So you could combine the I saw on Facebook with an invitation to coffee. Hey, I saw on Facebook you were just in Mexico. It looked amazing. How was it? You have that conversation. Then you could say, hey, you know what? It's been a little while since we've caught up. Let's get coffee, or let's get a beer, or let's get lunch, or whatever. So you can combine those things. So it's not just I saw on Facebook. If some people may have a harder time with that, I wouldn't personally, but some people might. So yeah. That's what I think on that. But that kind of segues to the other thing I want to ask you about is you have a lot of live interaction with your clients. You're probably the most caffeinated person in Fort Collins. I can only imagine how many coffee. I mean, you have at least 3.
I'm caffeine free. Come on,
you have at least 3 coffee meetings a day. I think so. You're going to coffee all the time with your clients.
I should own stock in Starbucks. I seriously should. Like, I'm not even kidding. I do. I meet with people a lot. My coffee budget, my wife used to complain about, but not so much anymore because, just kind of how I interact with people a lot. But I do a lot of FaceTime with people. I mean, not FaceTime as in the app, but face to face with people over coffee or lunch or breakfast or something like that. I try to get probably 8 to 10 meetings a weekend if I can.
Okay.
And again, most of them are just personal related, and real estate always comes up. We talk it through, but
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you have like a specific mission at those coffee meetings, or is it simply to catch up? We'll talk about your CMAs and real estate reviews that you do, but are you bringing things like that, or are you just there to catch up with people?
Yeah, I would say again, most of the time, and I know there are different perspectives on this, and I respect them. Some people will say, well, always bring something like that with you. My perspective is one more of, if they ask me to bring one, I will. Otherwise, there are times if I know they're curious about things, I'll bring it and give it to them.
Yeah.
By and large, again, the vast majority of my meetings are seriously, hey, how are you doing? How's life? How's your family?
Yep.
A lot of the forward
Sure.
type questions,
Yep. Yep.
So I do that just to connect with people. And again, 9 times out of 10, they'll bring up real estate.
Sure. You
right?
don't have
and then,
to.
No,
Yeah.
and then we kind of go that direction if they want. And if they
Yeah.
don't, they don't.
Yeah.
And that's all right.
Right. Right.
So I don't, I will. So that's the answer. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I don't. For me, my style is more one of still interacting in a positive way, bringing real estate in at their initiation, which almost always happens.
Yeah.
And provide them with something of value. It may be a CMA, it may be a thought or a statistic, or something that I can surprise them with some cool information that helps them see that you're on top of the market.
Right.
But it's not necessarily a sales call.
Sure.
Where
right.
I'm meeting with them.
Right. Got it. Now you do send out quite a few CMAs. I know that's part of your strategy. Talk a little bit about that.
So my goal, of which sometimes I hit and sometimes I don't, right? And that's one of my, call it a flaw, I don't know what it is, but I'm not necessarily the most, I'm kind of flighty. My assistant Bethany calls me a squirrel. My last assistant called me a squirrel. I mean, I can get easily distracted with things, and sometimes I struggle with that. But my goal is to do 10 CMAs a week.
Okay.
And so basically what that looks like, it's a pretty simple analysis, and sometimes it's it's very broad. It's not necessarily their house.
Sure.
Okay. Maybe a neighborhood overview. And I will include a personal handwritten note with that. It basically says, hey, hope you're doing well. Thought you'd be interested to see what's happening in your neighborhood with sales. Holler if you want to look more closely at your house.
Great. So,
something
so these
like
go
that.
out in the mail.
They go out in the mail.
You print them, go out in the mail.
They do go out in the mail. Some people personally deliver, which is probably great. Yeah. I sometimes, because of the number I'm trying to send out, that can be a little more difficult.
Yeah.
And also because of how I typically approach it.
Yeah.
Right. And I may shoot them a text and say, hey, just so you know, I'm working on a market analysis for you. I'm going to drop it in the mail. Holler if you have any questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I mean, and a lot of times, sometimes I think, and again, I'm going to get sideways with some people. This is my style. And I say people need to operate within their style of how they do things. But with me, I love sending texts that don't require a response.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe you should always have, a call to action in every text. I'm not personally like that, only because I like them to feel a freedom. They can not if they don't want to respond, but they always do.
Yeah.
They always do, So for me, that's kind of a way I do it. There are times, I don't want to make it sound like I never have a call to action, because I do.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, by and large, when it comes to my CMAs, I'm putting the information out there. I will have some sort of a conversation or a text or something just to make sure they got it, let them know it's coming.
Got it.
But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So the goal is 10 a week, and so you're getting quite a few of those out.
Right.
So probably all 400 people.
Yeah.
You will get one during the year. It sounds like.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Terrific. So you mentioned the squirrel comment before.
Yeah.
What I would share is that you are so focused on relationships. That's never a distraction. You're just all in on building relationships. And related to that, I'll share a wonderful quote from you. You've said before, I don't see myself in sales. I see myself in relationships. I love that. And I think this is a good segue, John. You have a real strong belief about cold leads and people who are buying leads, people who try to sell you leads. Talk about that, because I think there's some ahas there, because sometimes I watch realtors get lured away by that. They get attracted by that shiny object. It pulls them off course, pulls them away from the low-hanging fruit, which are the relationships. So share your belief on that.
Man, I see more and more of these advertisements coming out to buy leads, right? And that's fine. I do understand that it works for some people, and some people enjoy that. Some people, that's kind of the approach they take on their business. They may be a little less relational, right? And or they're moving into an area and they don't know anybody and they need anything coming in, and I get that. But I think so often people totally miss the fact that you have people around you. You have people who need your help, who you can be of service to, and to look out and build relationships, because that's what it's about. Even people who are, well, first of all, I was at the National Association of Realtors convention in Boston, here several months ago, and the chief economist for NAR was talking about the number of internet leads that come out and how many of them are just duplicates, or they're mislabeled as leads, or you never know what you're getting, when you're paying money for these things. And again, I'm not saying there's never, ever, ever, ever a time to buy some leads. I don't see it for myself, but I'm established in the community too. But I just think that first and foremost, your relationships are where the vast majority of your business is going to come from. So to focus on that, become involved in your community, become involved in social groups, become involved just with people in general. So many of my deals have come from church, which, by the way, I don't like to talk about business at church, and I actually don't unless someone brings something up. I'll answer a question, but I don't think church is a place to prospect. Personally.
Sure.
But that's where people know you from, and so that's an area. Or just getting to know people. But I think people waste a lot of money on leads. And by the way, I have, in my earlier years, I did buy leads from Zillow for like $100 a month or $150, whatever it was, for a couple of zip codes. I got some leads, not as many as I was hoping, and they were usually not good leads. And so you spend a lot of time following up on stuff that may not pan out. And I'm very careful to never put this on the absolutes, right? Someone listening has had great success on buying leads, and that's fantastic. For me, that's not the best way to go. And I'm just such a strong believer on focusing on your strengths and the path that makes sense for you.
Well, earlier we talked about a mindset of investment. And what you found for you, what I find for most, is that the best investment is back into current relationships. That's where you're going to get the best ROI, because you're leveraging off of a current relationship. They already know you, like you, trust you.
If you have a list of 50 people and you have $500 to spend, is it better to spend buying leads to get more people, or is it better to spend on your list? Hands down.
Hands
your
down.
List.
Hands down.
Hands down your list.
Hands down. All right, let's shift gears here a little bit, and then we'll open it up to questions. And you have a really great way of explaining to a potential seller how your fee works, and a great way of answering a potential seller if, in the rare case of that they're asking you to discount your fee. Obviously, because we have people listening in from all kinds of different companies, different areas, of course, we're not implying that there's anything like a standard fee or normal or anything like that. Yes, that's our disclaimer. You're welcome to talk about specific percentages, but we're not implying that that would be typical or standard or anything like that. So what happens when someone says to you, hey, will you reduce your fee? Will you sell my home for a discount? How do you handle that?
Right. Well, so with the question, if the question comes up on the phone, right, if I'm talking to someone and they'll say, hey, would you do it for a discount? In our case, in my case, would you do it for 5% instead of 6%? Right. The answer it comes from Larry Kindle, right? Larry Kindle with Ninja Selling. One of his great answers is, it wouldn't be fair and honest. I work with a lot of people. It wouldn't be fair and honest for me to do that. For one person, not another. Now, one thing I do often say is, if that question comes up on the phone and I want to get face to face with them.
So just be clear,
Yeah.
on the phone and
Yes.
that initial call. So it could be you calling them or they're calling you. Hey,
Yeah.
you helped out my friend, the so-and-so, saw their house.
Right.
They recommended I call you,
Yes.
and you're just a couple minutes in the conversation. Then
Yep.
they spring it on you. Yeah. And so
So
we
my
do it for a
answer,
discount.
my
Yeah.
answer is it depends.
It depends. So
It
that's
depends.
everyone listening, that's a really good takeaway. It depends.
So
Yeah.
the reason I say it depends is 9 times out of 10, it's going to be 6%. Okay.
Yeah.
But there are some times, I mean, and if someone says, hey, you're talking, you're getting ready to list a house, and they go, you know what, my next door neighbor actually wants to buy it.
Uh-huh.
Well, there are some listeners who will say, well, I'm 6%. I'm doing both sides. For me personally, I'll look at that and go, man, you found the buyer. I'm going to work with you a little bit on that.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of freedom in our business, right? But I mean, they're not going to get some drastic discount, but but that gives me the reason to say it depends.
Yeah.
So then I can,
which is a legitimate
and I
answer.
say it depends.
Yeah.
I love, I can explain that to you
Uh-huh.
a little bit more if you want to connect on
Uh-huh.
that. But I will say, I'll just straight up say, you know what, my fee is 6%.
Yeah.
But it really depends.
Yeah. Got it.
And that kind of gives them that nugget of, I wonder what that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me find out more about this.
Yeah. The other thing I think is really effective and powerful that you do is when you're with a seller face to face and you're in the listing consultation,
Mm-hmm.
and let's pretend that commission and fee has not come up yet.
Right.
And so you haven't had the it depends conversation, but now you're with them, listing consultation, you will most likely walk them through the fee and how it works ever before they ask.
Yeah,
right? You'll say, all right, let me walk you through how this works. So you preempt it.
Eric,
is my point.
Isn't that the elephant in the room?
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and some people will say, don't even bring it up.
Mhm.
I mean, if it doesn't come up, don't
Yeah.
bring it up. I don't agree with that because it's an elephant in the room and it makes it seem like you're holding something back.
Right.
So if you don't bring it up, I will. And I'll say, you know what? Hey, I bet, most people wonder about the real estate fee. And I want to talk about that for just a minute.
Yeah.
My standard fee is 6%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me explain how that works to you.
Yeah.
So about 0.5%, or about, in our case, 3% of that will go to compensate the buyer, the agent who brings a buyer for your home.
Yeah.
So that's 3% that's just kind of out of the picture.
Uh-huh.
The 3% that stays with my company, and I will say oftentimes the company, because it takes it off of me. Right. If I'm saying, well, the 3% that I have, I say the 3% that goes to the company is broken down into 3 different parts. So about 0.5% of that's going to go to marketing your home and the money we put into that. About 1% to 1.5% is going to go to the company structure and some fees that I need to pay and paying my assistant, some different things. And what I take home is about 1%.
Yeah.
And then I always throw in there, I wish it was 6%. That would be awesome. But that's how that works.
Right.
And I said, and there's always a curiosity. And usually when you break that down for people, the light goes on and they're kind of, okay, they get it. I mean, where are they going to ask you to cut? Right. So,
exactly. Yeah.
And if they go, well, we could just take pictures, ourselves or this, I say, nah, I mean, my listings have a reputation.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a great listing for your benefit and mine.
Yeah.
So things like that. But that's how I do that. I'll break it down. And then I've never had pushback on my fee.
Yeah.
And if I have, then I just say, well, that's just kind of what it is.
Right.
And, but you got to be careful because what happens if you offer to do it for 4% for somebody and 5% for another and 6% for another, you put yourself in a pickle.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of lessons there. One is you're not afraid to bring it up. And so that gives just a different tone to the whole conversation. The fact that you're the one that brought it up, you're confidently explaining it. So you're not going to hide from it. You're not shy about it, which projects that you're confident about your fee and your value. You've explained it where you've broken it down. So if they're asking you, in your case, to reduce from 6 to 5, really what they're asking you to do personally is do that transaction for free.
Correct.
Because you've explained that what's left for you is 1%.
And I don't have to say that, but they know that's what
they
I'm
get it in their
saying.
head. Yeah.
Right.
The other thing I like, and I watch some realtors fall into this trap sometimes. You never say, well, yeah, and then I have to give my company blah blah blah.
No.
Like it's not, and I watch some realtors. I hear about some realtors who do that sometimes, and I just don't think that's an effective way to explain it.
Right.
Then you're pitting, the company against, and it just,
that's a good way to look at it.
I just think it comes across in a strange way. So
I don't know that I've ever looked at it that way.
Yeah,
I mean, never thought about it in that way.
It's a collaborative approach. So I think that's really, really good. And so hopefully everyone listening can employ those things that John just talked about. If you ever get asked about your fee, let's see. I had a couple of things I was going to ask John about, but before I do that, this would be your chance to ask John a question. And the way that you can do that is the same way that you sent me a note saying that you could hear me loud and clear. So if there's anything you want to ask John about, anything he's done to build his business, any advice that you can ask him, this is obviously a pro, someone who's figured out how to quickly ramp up his business, someone who's quickly figured out how to leverage relationships. What you can do is just type in your question, and John and I will be able to see it here on our dashboard. We'd be happy to help you out. And maybe, John, while people are gathering their thoughts and typing in their questions, I'll ask you one question I wanted to pass on to you, and that is just simply what advice would you have for someone who's maybe either newer or even someone who's looking for kind of a reset to their business? Maybe they've been doing this a little while, but they want to reset. Maybe they've been in the trap of buying leads, but they want to get away from that. What advice would you have for that kind of a person?
Yeah, that's great. I think that people just need to stop for a moment and just think through and go, what am I doing that's working, and what am I doing that's not, right?
Yeah.
And I think just to reassess where they are at and to make sure they are focusing on the basics. Because, again, we brought up shiny objects earlier, right? Buying the leads, hey, people encourage that. There's so many people say, I got to buy leads, got to buy leads. Well, maybe not. Maybe you need to look around and realize that it's not leads I need to buy. I actually need to focus on the people I do know, pour the money into them. Yeah. Maybe I'm not sending out a boomerang.
Yeah.
And Windermere News statistics to someone. Well, there's your place to start.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Get that contact with people 2 or 3 times a month. We know our research shows us that why do people go with a particular realtor when they know 10, right? Mm-hmm. And why is it?
Well, it's because of relationship, and also because they view that person as an expert.
So, and it's the last person they heard from.
Yeah,
right. All those reasons. And so it's like a matter of, okay, well, if because it's the last person they heard from is a reason, well, then there's your reason right there to make sure you're staying in touch with people. So I would say compile a list. If you don't have a list of clients or people to connect with, compile that list and then just hit those people. Not physically, you can get in trouble for that, but just start sending them texts. Not annoyingly. I'm saying, drop them an email, drop them a text, shoot them a phone call, make sure they get on that mailing list, because those are auto flow, right? Automatic flow that you don't even have to think about if they're done for you. In our case, it's great. I mean, we're helped with that. But just starting to really engage with people regularly, I think, is probably the number one thing I would say.
Yeah, fabulous. We had a question come in that's related to listings, and the question is essentially, it's a really good question. The question is essentially, do you have a rule of thumb, John, on how much you spend per listing? How much do you invest into marketing each listing? The question came in with $1 million listing example, but do you look at it like as a percentage of the listing amount, or how do you view that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And for one, at least in Windermere, we're blessed here in ours to have kind of a template of what we do, to have what we call a certified listing. And I mean, I'll let you address how you want to on that. But there are certain things that we are blessed here in Windermere, Colorado, is just to have a few things we automatically provide, which is photographs, cleaning, the floor plans, pre-inspection, some different things that go towards that are included in kind of what we do. So I do that. But as far as a percentage, I think I look at each one separately. I don't skimp. That's the one thing. Yeah. If I need to spend several $1,000s on $1 million listing, which I wish I had more of those, but I tend to be a little lower than that, then I wouldn't hesitate. I think sometimes we think too small and we go, oh, I can't spend $5,000 to market this property. Okay, well, look at this in the grand scheme of things, right? I mean, how many closings is that? Now, thankfully, my volume's a little more where I can look at that a little bit differently, but I don't skimp, because if you skimp, it shows, and that's not good. So I guess I'm having a hard time putting a percentage on it. I think it's case by case.
Okay. So you're not. I know some people may have a rule of thumb, like an exact percentage. You don't approach it that way. You just look at each property individually.
Yeah, and I think his question too is the specific. Okay, if you have a 500,000 versus 5 million, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be spending different amounts, but I'm going to treat my 500,000 listing just as important as my 5 million, right? And so determining what I need to do for each of those. Maybe I'm spending 10,000 in marketing on one and 1,500 on another. Yeah. It's just hard to know. I do think it's case by case, and if it moves quicker and one's on the market longer, I may need just to keep up with that. But this is your opportunity to shine, because this is where you show them, hey, we're willing to do what we need to do to make this happen. Yeah. And you can address this, but I think if you're getting to really, really, really high dollar homes, then that's where you may have not retainer, but what would you call that?
There are different strategies there where it depends on the kind of the market conditions as well. But sometimes I've seen in the past it's effective to ask the seller to front the marketing money, and then there's a promise of a reimbursement at closing. Sometimes you may change the listing fee, you may reduce the listing fee in exchange for the seller picking up the marketing charges, and then there's no reimbursement. They pick it up themselves. Right. Yes, sometimes you can do a retainer, but if you're getting into the kind of property that high dollar that will require high investment and that will be sitting on the market for a while, you may want to work out those scenarios with the seller.
But one thing, and I think you would agree with me, is the importance of not skimping on anything. So it's like, never. If they're like, hey, I'll pay for marketing, but I don't want to, maybe we don't need to get floor plans drawn up. And I think that's where we as agents have to say, no, I mean, these are things that we have to do, in order to help you sell.
That's right.
Quickly for the highest.
Regardless of the market, I think that's a really good point, because we've seen in a strong seller's market, sometimes the realtors will back off and skimp on the marketing. Well, we don't need this or that, but it puts the seller in a bad position. It certainly puts that realtor in a bad position for the future too, because you're projecting to the marketplace the way that you consistently market a listing. So you and I share a belief of you go all in all Absolutely. The time, belief of show up like no one else. And that's the key to make it happen. Yeah. Let's see. So it looks like that's the only question that came in. And so, John, let's wrap up with this. Because of the great success you've had yourself, launching your business, launching your career, 7 years, here you are consistently in the 50, 60 transactions per year. You're going to have 9 closings this month. You decided, took it upon yourself to come up with a program to help out other newer agents, really all agents, but it's more geared toward new and newer agents. Right. It's called Top Notch Agents. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that and how people can learn more about that.
Yeah, thanks. Super excited about it. We're wrapping up content for the website right now. It's going to be a subscription-based coaching program, but focused on new real estate agents. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's really needed. Now, the blessing that many of us have, whether, again, for me, I know I keep bringing Windermere in, but our new agents are going to get good coaching and good mentoring and training, but so many places across the country and so many brokerages don't do that. Yeah. And so I really want to come alongside newer agents, brand new agents, and help them get their business rocking. You know, I think there's some things that very simple, basic things you can do to get rolling.
Yeah.
And I think that unless you do those things, you're going to be stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to flounder.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really want to help kind of get rolling on that. You know, I think all good athletes have a coach, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things we need to realize is that, listen, if you want to go to the next level, or in this case, get started, or the other thing we're doing is helping people relaunch. You know, maybe they've been doing this for 10 years, but it's like, this is not what it could be. Well, then jump on board, you know, jump on board with your program or my program or whoever's, but have someone coming alongside you and helping you along in the process, because that's what's really critical. So topnotchagents.com.
Okay.
We're launching here, in the next few weeks. And we're just super excited. And I think we're going to see, well, I like to say that we're going to help people hit, astounding success in their first year. And I really do think that we can do that.
Yeah.
It's going to be super reasonable and just, I think, exactly what they need, and something that hits a niche that's not filled right now.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Talk about your legs of the stool as you watch a realtor just start out, or if they want to relaunch. You notice that there's just, for that stool to stand up, you need some legs on that stool, and so you've identified a handful of legs that got to be on the stool. So talk about those.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's several legs on the stool that I think people need to have, and one of them is just to have a clear picture of where they want to go in real estate. Some people say, well, I just want to, dabble in it. Great, that's fine. Or I just want to maybe down the road transition over to full time, or maybe help my family and friends. That's great, but have a clear objective as to where you want to go. Number two, I think you need money.
Yeah.
You need money, because you've got to have money to launch your business, right? You've got to have, I like to tell people, have $3,000 or $4,000 just to start.
Yeah.
And then have at least 6 months of living expenses. This is when you're jumping to full time.
Yeah.
Of course, have it in your pocket so that when things come up, you're not choosing between eating or marketing. Right. So have that.
Yeah.
Number three is to have an established sphere. I mean, these are, if you're going to jump into real estate, again, and this isn't an absolute, there's going to be people who don't have this existing sphere in their neighborhood or in their city, but people who have, I believe, at least 100 people that they can list out and focus on those people are going to see amazing results.
Yeah.
If you have to, get out and get involved, and maybe you're working FSBOs, right? Maybe you are calling expireds. That's fine too. But I'm just saying, for your astounding success, if you can have that list of people you're really working to, is that you do that. And then the fourth thing is landing at the right place.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't land in the right brokerage, you're going to have issues.
Right.
You've got to have that help.
Right.
And the last thing is just to have a can-do attitude and be persevering in what you do. Yeah. So if you have those things, right, if you have a clear focus, you have money, you have an existing sphere, you have a great brokerage, and you have a great attitude, you will kill it. Will you not?
You will be successful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Those things combined, you're on your way. And you need all of those. You need all five. And,
absolutely.
And the stool.
Yep.
And the stool will
each leg you take away, each leg you take away
makes
it more difficult for it to stand. It
Right.
can be done.
Yeah.
But your chances are getting slimmer and slimmer.
That's right.
As you take each leg away.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So again, it's topnotchagents.com.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone wants to check out more about your program, and I've seen a little bit from on the inside of what you're building. It's terrific. That's really going to help out lots and lots of people. So bravo on that. And so with that, gang, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So John, once again, thank you so much. You see John's email address there on the screen, and you're welcome to reach out to him if you have other questions or comments, or even just want to send him a thank you note. Please do that. I'm sure he would appreciate that. And John, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
fun time.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Been a real treat. Thank you for all the nuggets and takeaways. I know you've helped out lots of people. So everyone, thank you again for joining. Thanks all of you who joined live. Thank you to everyone who's listening to the recording. We will catch you next month. Just watch your email for our next month's schedule and our next month's guest. We'll have another good one and other ways to help you out in your business. In the meantime, have an awesome January, and we'll talk to all of you here real soon. Bye.